Tensions running high in Sri Lanka. There have been days of violence between Buddhists and Muslims, and the government is once again accused of failing to prevent it. So what's behind this conflict, and could it lead to further unrest? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Hazem Seeker. Well, it's been described as one of the worst acts of religious violence in Sri Lanka's recent history. Buddhist hardliners have set fire to Muslim-owned shops and homes for a second night in a row in defiance of a government-imposed curfew. At least 3 people have been killed and hundreds more were injured in the coastal town of Alutgama. And at the heart of the conflict is the Buddhist national movement, which goes by the name of Bodhu Bala Sena, which roughly translates to Buddhist Power Force. Known by its acronym BBS, the nationalist movement is led by monks. It's based in the capital, Colombo, and it was formed in 2012, organizing various campaigns against the minority Muslim and Christian communities. According to the group, its mission is to save the Sinhalese race, in their words, which makes up 74% of Sri Lanka's population. Now, its members have attacked places of worship, called for boycotts of Muslim-owned businesses and properties, and want to ban headscarves and halal foods. Their message has struck a chord with parts of the population, but some Buddhists criticize them for going against Buddhism's non-violent ideology. We'll hear from our guests in a moment, but first Minel Fernandez sets up this discussion from the western town of Alutgama.
Burnt-out freezers in the middle of the road belonging to this Muslim-owned farm shop, one of dozens of Muslim businesses and homes that were torched and destroyed during the melee that occurred 2 nights ago here in Alutgama and in Darga town. At the moment, the road's pretty much deserted with the reimposition of curfew after a 4-hour let-up this morning, allowing people to restock. The tension's still very, very high. As you can see behind me, our team van came under attack by an unruly mob of Muslims this morning. Essentially, there was a tense situation, but literally within 2 minutes of our team getting off our vehicles, they manhandled the cameraman, and while we were trying to drive away, they started pelting stones at the vehicle, damaging all the glass around it. Now, here again, more evidence of that violence which unfolded, but still, in terms of the authorities, they've deployed a heavy security presence. There is police, there's special task force personnel, there are members of the military, the armed forces, who are also being deployed right through the streets. Almost every street has got security personnel that have been deployed, all waiting to keep a lid on tensions, which are very much like a powder keg. You can feel that tension the moment you go through these communities, and it's very much an uphill task for the authorities to restore normalcy and maintain that calm and law and order.
So let's talk more about all of this with our guests then. In London, we have Alan Kenyon, Senior Analyst at the International Crisis Group. And joining us via Skype from Colombo, Dilanto Vitanage, Founding Executive Committee Member of Bodhu Bala Sena. Thank you for being with us, gentlemen. Alan Kenyon, if I could start with you, what do you believe is behind all of this then?
Well, behind all of what? I mean, the violence, I think, was the result of a very provocative protest march and speeches by BBS leaders on Sunday. But that's just sort of the tip of the iceberg of a radical movement that they and other groups have been organizing the last couple of years, which I think taps into fears of many Sinhalese and Buddhists about what they see as Muslim extremism and also Christian fundamentalism to a lesser extent. But I think it misrepresents and plays on and manipulates those fears. And I think we've seen that the violence is increasing slowly but surely. And Sunday and last night's violence was the most worrying and most damaging so far of this campaign.
And how does this compare then with previous ethnic and communal tensions in Sri Lanka then?
Well, there was serious anti-Muslim violence almost 100 years ago, 1915. Since then, there have been occasional sporadic incidents at the local level between Muslims and Buddhists, but nothing on this scale. nothing like what happened in Aludkama and Perovela the other nights. And there's been no organized national level campaign like we've seen with BBS and some other smaller Sinhala Buddhist nationalist groups.
Dilanta Vitanage, the accusation which you heard there, and I know you've heard elsewhere, is that your group has played a big part in instigating this violence. There was this rally in which the reports say that BBS marched into Muslim areas after this what was seen as a very provocative rally, chanting anti-Muslim slogans. The police got involved eventually, but there were unconfirmed reports as well that security forces also used gunfire. And witnesses are saying that Muslim homes and a mosque were stoned. I mean, isn't your group a big part of the problem here?
I have to tell you that if you look at international media, they report completely in a wrong manner. So because they say that Buddhist attacks Muslims, I totally disagree with this.
It's not just the media that's saying this. These are witnesses who were there. Several of them, this is what they were saying.
I will tell you, this is clashes between some extremist elements of Sinhalese and some extremist elements of Muslims. This is not extremist Buddhists attacking innocent Muslims. So we have to understand what happened there really. And about this march also, I don't think that is correct information you all talk about. So actually, BBS never organized this meeting because, on Poson Poya Day, on 12th of this month, when one Buddhist monk traveled on a road and his vehicle was stopped and his driver and he was attacked by, two Muslim youth. And actually that started all these problems. So after that, today, on 16th, there was a meeting organized when that Buddhist monk was taken from the hospital. So that meeting, of course, our leaders was invited and they made some speeches. But after that, they calmed down the people and they requested all people to go home and they stopped the meeting. And while this Buddhist monk was taken to that temple from Aludgama town to Dargah city, then actually what happened, one guy from the Muslim mosque attacked the crowd, and that created all these problems. So of course we as an organization, responsible organization in Sri Lanka, we categorically deny all the allegations made against us that we were part of this. Unfortunately, when somebody is doing something, even today, there were a lot of Twitter messages taking that Buddha Sena is organizing meetings here and there, and everybody blame us. But unfortunately, we never organized a particular even a meeting today. Now we condemn all these attacks by both Muslims and Sinhala groups. It is important to highlight that the majority of Sri Lankans in this country, even today, live peacefully, and Sri Lankans are generally a peace-loving people. Unfortunately, some media and some politicians put blame to us.
All right.
But we have to tell you, we never initiated and we categorically reject all allegations, and we don't want to have this, what we experienced 30 years of war. We don't want to repeat that.
All right, but what does I want to ask you, Dilanta Vitanage, what does your group stand for exactly? Because we mentioned there some of the rhetoric that's been employed. Hold on a second. We mentioned there at the top that its stated mission is to, quote, save the Sinhalese race. What exactly does that mean? It's particularly when the Sinhalese race makes up 74% of the population. There are these accusations as well that you've called for boycotts of Muslim-owned businesses and properties, that you want to ban headscarves and halal foods. What do you say to all of that?
I think you have got the wrong interpretation, because whatever we do, that is when the Muslim political leaders, to gain publicity, to gain their voter base, they interpret in a different manner. Now,
so you're saying that they're fabricating all of this?
Yes, most of this, it's interpreting in a wrong manner. Now, for example, if I say that when, if you say Buddha Sena, our vision is to protect Buddhism for generations. This is nothing to do with single race only. Now, when you look at single race, because why we should protect single race, because single Buddhists are a minority. So within the Sri Lankan context, you can call single Buddhists are a majority. But within the global context, where you have all global forces, global media, global politics, global funding coming to our country, single Buddhists are a minority within the global context. So we need to protect that nation, because actually the Theravada Buddhism was protected during last 2,300 years without any interruption by the Sinhalese.
All right.
So there is a need to protect Sinhalese. So there is no wrong in protecting Sinhalese or Buddhists. But unfortunately, we never have anything against rights of the Muslims of this country, because we believe that all those Sri Lankans.
All right, I want to get, sorry to interrupt, I want to get Alan Keenan's take on all of this in just a moment, but first we're going to talk a little bit more, give you some context here about the ethnic makeup, the ethnic and religious makeup of Sri Lanka. According to Sri Lanka's latest census, around 75% of the country's 20 million people are Sinhalese, mostly Buddhist. Tamils make up around 11%, while the minority Muslim population is around 9%. So Alan Keenan, I mean, how concerned should the minority communities be in Sri Lanka in the larger picture of all of this?
Well, I think they should be extremely concerned, and I think they are. I mean, I speak to all my Muslim friends, my Tamil friends, my Christian friends, and many of them are extremely worried. Muslims particularly are worried about their lives now, and worried about the security of their homes and their mosques and their ability to live a decent, normal life like the rest of us. I think it was great to see Mr. Vitanage condemn the violence, but generally speaking, his portrayal of the recent events is completely at odds with virtually all other observers that I've spoken to and read. And I don't think it's any accident that people see this as having been a BBS rally, given that the BBS's leader, Nyanasara Tero, gave a rousing, very virulently anti-Muslim speech to a crowd which responded quite enthusiastically. So, you know, given that, and given previous rhetoric where Nyanasara has also requested for a 10,000 strong civilian police force to be created by Sinhalese Buddhists to protect themselves and to oppose what they see as Islamic extremism. I think those sort of calls for vigilanteism, it's not surprising in that context that some people will take them up on it. And credible reports from Alutgama and the surrounding area report that many of those, if not the large majority of those who came to this rally on Sunday were brought in from outside. Some of them were armed. And from all accounts that I've seen that seem credible, this was not a sort of something getting a bit out of hand with mutual tit-for-tat violence. It was a planned, organized assault on the Muslim community, which has been long in preparation. Now, it's true what Mr. Vitanage said, that there had been an incident a few days before in which a Buddhist monk appears to have been injured or claims to have been assaulted, but the facts in that case remain a bit vague, and there's other sides of the story as well.
All right, now these latest attacks are described as the worst religious violence in Sri Lanka in years, but it's not the first time the government has been criticised for its alleged failure to protect minority groups. During the early 1980s, there were violent ethnic riots that provided the backdrop for the 20 years of civil war that followed. That conflict saw Sri Lanka's Buddhist majority fight Tamil separatists, and the government is still being investigated for the war that ended in 2009. More recently, tensions have been rising between Buddhists and Sri Lanka's Muslim minority, as we've been discussing. This is the first time people have been killed during the riots, but in August last year, a Buddhist attack on a mosque in Colombo injured 12 people. All right, let's bring in from Colombo, Rauf Hakim, who is the Sri Lankan Justice Minister. Thank you very much for being with us. Now, Minister Rauf Hakim, you've been on the record in some of these reports as saying that you are prepared to resign from your position if the government does not get a grip on this violence. Where do things stand right now on that? And what specifically do you want to see the government doing here?
In fact, I told Parliament today in a detailed speech that I had to make when it came to the Geneva resolutions, for which they wanted the support of all the coalition partners of the government, that my party, 8 members, will decide on the vote tomorrow based on assurances that we will receive from the government to give complete security for the Muslims, and also to take immediate action to arrest those responsible, particularly Venerable Galagoda Atta Nyanasara, who had been responsible for making inflammatory speeches and have incited the violence by holding a meeting the day prior to this incident. And this has been happening as a routine for almost 2 years now. The government has not taken any action to contain the vitriolic speeches that have caused so much of hatred and have instigated this wanton destruction and violence, which has resulted in thousands of families being rendered destitute.
And if what you're calling for doesn't happen, you and your faction will resign from the government?
Yes, we have we have asked them to that we will not consider cooperating with the government until we see definite assurances regarding the safety of Muslims in the first place, and to take effective action without any procrastination to arrest and bring criminal charges against these particular monks who have been involved in inciting people. We also want the government to make hate speech as a criminal offence, which has been approved by the cabinet. We also want sufficient compensation package announced for those who have suffered serious property loss and damage. Of course, those who have died too has to be compensated, but then that can never bring back their lives.
I want to ask you about the point that our guest in London, Alan Keenan, had made about the government's lack of action in all of this up to this point, and the criticism that they have tolerated the rise of the BBS and other Buddhist groups like it as a means of cementing their grip on power. Is there any truth to that, do you believe?
No, there has been assumptions based on the inhibition that government has shown in not taking any effective action against this particular group of people. They have been involved in breaking the law at will, without any law enforcement being taken against them. They have been openly instigating people to violence. They have been involving in very vitriolic and abusive speech. They have barged into press conferences and beaten up fellow monks who have been also wanting to voice their own opinion against the type of hatred that this group is spreading. They have walked into ministries and have intimidated ministers and their staff. They have done various frolics in the open, and they have all got away with every such incident.
Let's put some of that then to Dilanta Vitanage, the accusations of insightful rhetoric, intimidation tactics. There have been numerous accounts of them, which the minister has just outlined there. Your response to that?
Actually, I want to tell you, he is talking about the hate speech. Now, I want to tell you, for last 1 year, we were tolerating, we were, basically listening to the speeches made by one of the Muslim group called Sri Lanka Tawhid Jamaat. They produced a video where they spread that video over the internet, saying that Lord Buddha is a barbarian. He ate human flesh, and Lord Buddha is not a good person. And Buddhism, they insulted Buddhism and Lord Buddha. I have to ask you, that we never had any attack against them. So when you talk about hate speech, they were criticizing Lord Buddha in a very pathetic manner. No action taken by the government. We also blame the government for not taking action for 1 year. And I have to tell you, we had 2 years meetings, over 50 meetings, and thousands of people came. In any of these meetings, any of these meetings, activities of this nature didn't happen. Actually, this happened because in Dargah town, when the peaceful people were moving to their homes, stones were thrown from, we have the videos, stones were thrown from the mosque to attack them. And at the same time, I have to tell you that we categorically deny that BBS plan activities. Actually, according to the Honorable Minister, he says that, Venerable Janasara Theru organized and hold the meeting. Not Venerable Janasara Theru organized the meeting. That meeting was organized by the relevant Buddhist monks and the temples within that area. We were invited to have the speeches. And at the same time, our gentleman from London, I think it's wrong and it's false information that we never, or Janasara Theru never wanted to have I have not heard about that 10,000 police force to be created in order to protect Buddhism. That also completely wrong information. And at the same time, everybody is trying to link with us, with the president's family. I don't agree with that. For example, because Mr. Hakim and other people protested, and some of the people that we are working in the government, I was working in the government as an advisor. So I was asked by the one of the president's brother to leave the government because I'm supporting Buddha Sena. And at the same time, I want to tell you that there are some zones, Muslim zones.
All
and
right.
I have to tell you that in eastern province of Sri Lanka, where Mr. Hakim is the leader, one of the Buddhist, not one, a couple of Buddhist pagodas were closed.
Yeah, I think you made your point there, Dilanta Vitanage. I want to get the response then from Rauf Hakim. You've been hearing there, he's basically saying that there is inflammatory rhetoric on both sides. How do you respond to that?
You see, there was only one incident which he says was inflammatory speech made by an unknown youth. He was one boy whom I have nobody has known before. This particular speech was supposed to have been put on the internet about Lord Buddha and his eating habits. And this was quite unnecessary, and all of us condemned it. And then we immediately put a stop to all that, and he himself has apologized for that statement. And that should have been just closed there. When the person said, well, this is because of my lack of knowledge of the history or about the person that I have uttered this, and I totally apologize for what I have said. But these people have taken it as a pretext to unleash violence and also show Muslims as an intolerant minority, and that they themselves are responsible for all types of illegal activity. The type of propaganda they are unleashing without any basic facts. I have in my possession a document which I will now translate and send to all international organizations and other countries to show what type of organization the Bodubala Sena is and what type of false propaganda they are spreading in order to create hatred about the Muslims in a country in which they have lived for thousands of years so harmoniously with the Sinhala Buddhists of this country. And we have had such a harmonious relationship for several years until this organization during the 2013 alone, there were 313 incidents of violence, intimidation and harassment of Muslims, attacks on places of worship, mosques, churches, and this organization is specifically responsible, and there are several recorded incidents where they are involved in instigating violence.
On that, we are going to have to leave it. Thank you to all three of our guests, Rauf Hakim, Alan Keenan and Dilanta Vitanage. Thanks very much for your time. And that's it for this edition of Inside Story. Remember, you can add your voice to this discussion online at facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. We're also on Twitter. Just go to @AJ Inside Story on Twitter. I'm Hazem Seeker. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.